I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, today we are diving into a topic that touches every one of us, yet remains deeply personal. I'm talking about grief. With us is Heather S. Combs, whose life work has spanned from chaplaincy to advocacy. And now through her profound book, The Many Faces of Grief, Pathways to Healing, she offers a guiding light on the journey through grief. Drawing from her rich personal and professional experiences, Heather explores the multifaceted nature of grief and the pathways to healing. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing this important book. The links are below this interview. Heather, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you very much, Logan. Great to be with you again.
This is a fantastic book. Unfortunately, at one point in each of our lives, we're going to be grieving. We're going to lose someone important to us, whether it's a marriage that breaks down, whether it's a death, or whatever that might be. You begin your book with a fundamental question: what is grief? In your view, how can we understand grief, not just as an emotional response, but as a complex experience that encompasses the entire being?
Well, grief is the human response, or even an animal response, to any sense of important loss. It could be as simple as losing a pet, or it could be as profound as losing a loved one, especially if you haven't expected that along the way. And there are profound differences in the way that different people cope with grief. There are gender differences. There are cultural differences. And the way that we grieve is part of our individuality, and you can never quite predict, even from day to day, how you're going to react.
Yeah, I guess grieving is normal. It's natural. It's a part of the process of losing someone or having a bad situation strike you. But I guess it becomes problematic when you can't let go of the grief. Sometimes it feels like grief is the only thing that connects you to that person that you lost, right?
Yes, that's right. And it takes a while. Some people think that you should be over your grief process very quickly, and there's something wrong with you if you're not. But I think sometimes for some people it can take up to three years to process your feelings, and even throughout your life there are going to be triggers that will unexpectedly assault you, and you think, oh, where did that come from? And I think when you love deeply, you can grieve deeply. But as long as you've got support around you, of people that understand you and can accompany you on the journey, you're a long way there.
Yeah. I think it's very, very true. People who love deeply will grieve deeply. And I always say when you lose someone, it's like having a bad knee or a bad back. You learn to live with it, but you never know when it's going to go out on you. Like it's Mother's Day and you miss your mom. You hear a song on the radio and you miss somebody else who passed. So grief on some level does stick with you. The heartbreak of losing someone never fully goes away because you miss that person. I miss till this day not being able to pick up the phone and call my mother, you know?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. No matter how old we are, it still happens because our mothers have always been there, and they've been a very important part of our lives in the
Yeah.
most intimate way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Your book also talks about the many manifestations of grief when it comes to situations such as, you know, losing your job or not being able to work during COVID-19. I mean, there was a sense of loss there as well, right?
It was a lack of purpose, I think, for a lot of people.
Mm,
You spent a lot of your life commuting to work,
mhm,
and all of a sudden you're isolated because of mandatory isolation at one point, and you've got to somehow reconfigure that and uh, find out how you find purpose in that. And it's very difficult, very difficult.
yeah.
And COVID-19 certainly had its impact on many, many different people, particularly young people, I think,
Mm,
who needed to engage with their loved ones and friendship networks.
yeah.
Yeah.
What can help us when dealing with the grieving process? You know, obviously we're heartbroken. Obviously, the time period of grieving is different for different people. But at one point, we do have to pick up the pieces and go on with our lives. What strategies or practices would you suggest that might help somebody if they're having a hard time letting go of that pain?
I think first of all to be gentle with yourself
Mm,
and not expect instant recovery, that
mm,
it's going to take time. The other thing too is to surround yourself with supportive people. Not necessarily go to parties every week, but people that really deeply understand you. And the people needn't actually mention the grief itself if that's still too raw for you, but just to be there faithfully, um, uh, in practical and emotional ways.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
Um,
It's also so important to have a support network, right? To have somebody with you, if possible, a friend or a family member who you can explain how you're feeling, who can share your pain, who can be empathetic. That's helpful in the healing process as well.
and particularly if the person has known the person that you've lost, you
Yeah.
can share memories, maybe not the same as yours, but to know that the person that you've lost is important to them as well. Yeah.
That's
And
a great point. And then you're also learning about them. Like, did you know mom did this when she was 20 or 25? You know, so we still have chats till this day, my sisters and I, about my parents who have passed. And till this
yes,
day, we learn new things about them. So in many ways, it's keeping them alive, their legacy alive, and their memory alive.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think when we as friends of the bereaved person offer our condolences, it's important to share memories to
Mm,
keep them alive, as you say,
yeah.
and not to be thoughtful in your expressions of sympathy, not just to say, I'm sorry for your loss,
Right.
but then share appropriately and not too long your own experiences of grief.
Yeah.
You don't hog the limelight, but at least you give people permission to share whatever is on their mind at the time that they feel like they can.
Yeah. A kind word goes a long way when you've lost someone and you're particularly vulnerable and sensitive at that time too. You know, your heart is raw when you lose someone. So a kind word, like I said, goes a long way. I still remember some of the great things that people said to me that made me feel a little bit better, that gave me a little perspective, that gave me a little hope. particularly when I lost my dad, because I was the first person close to me in my life that I lost. Tell us about why you wrote this book, Heather. What was your motivation, and what were you hoping to achieve, and who were you hoping to help?
Okay. Well, the springboard to writing the book was the death of my mum.
Mm,
Um, and my mum was always supportive of me in my journey, particularly with disability, because that is a complex journey to run.
yeah,
And she was always with me. So her death, I didn't want to waste the experience um, because it was painful. And I thought, well, how can I constructively use this so that other people can be supported?
mm,
So that was the beginning point. But in my previous work as chaplain, I'd also confronted people in various stages of grief in the dying process. That's a grieving process
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
And loss of location of your home,
Hmm.
maybe into an aged care facility. That's a grief because you lose some degree of independence,
Mm,
and our society tends to prize independence at all costs.
yeah,
But when you come into an aged care facility, you've got to learn to accept help graciously,
yeah,
and but also to mourn the loss of function that you have, and getting used to a new routine where you're not always in control.
yeah. Why did you name the book The Many Faces of Grief?
Because there are so many different manifestations.
Hmm.
There are some times when you're bored, but underneath boredom is often grief.
Mm,
If you dig deeper, sometimes it's anger, and you can really explode at the most trivial thing. But in reality, if you look closer, it's because you're struggling.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Or it could be sheer tiredness. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the grief journey is an all-encompassing experience, I think, and it can lead to tiredness. There's a number of other ways. Oh, drug addiction might be another way that people try and numb the pain.
Yeah.
Um, so
People do try to self-medicate. It's better to deal with the issue. Like you said, chat with a loved one about the person you lost or the situation that you're facing. It's much more constructive. This is a beautiful book, as you heard from her words. She's a very articulate and eloquent woman, and she has put those words down on paper, words that'll help you during some of your darkest hours. The book is called The Many Faces of Grief: Pathways to Healing. It is written by Heather Combs, and she not only provides a deep dive into the heart of grief, but she also looks at the pathways forward. It's a great book. It's a great read. It's highly recommended. Heather, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
thank you very much, Logan. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.